What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You know, we're trying to grow the channel as much as we can, so definitely would appreciate you guys hitting the subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. I'm doing a little rigging right now. I'm heading out on the lake tomorrow and doing a little heavy cover grass fishing, frogging and flipping. Some of the most exciting ways of fishing, you know, especially here in the fall. It's a great way to catch them and catch some big ones as well. But I figured I'd run you through my whole setup. You know, I'm spooling up a new rod. I got brand new spool of braid out. We're spooling up a new rod and I'm going to go through the whole setup, you know, all the way, you know, from the braid down to the hook, the weight, the peg, the bait. Just kind of run you through my whole system for flipping this heavy grass. You know, the grass kind of mats out at the end of the year, and the water level starts to drop, and it kind of creates a little canopy, and a lot of those fish like to hide up in there in the fall time of year. So it's a great way to catch some big fish, and that's what I'm going to go do tomorrow. But if you guys are ready, let's jump in. Let's talk about my whole setup. We'll go through everything here and spool up a whole new flipping rod for flipping heavy cover. I got a backlash in my backing. Does that even make sense? Okay. So that's step number one here. You know, I'm spooling up some new braid, but I like to leave a little backing of fluorocarbon on there because it helps the braid from slipping against that spool. You know, you could, if you took all your fluorocarbon off, or you don't have a, or if you're getting a new reel that doesn't have any line on there, you could tie the braid to the spool. You know, if you have a spool that has holes through it, you can tie the braid, and you know, that'll keep it from slipping. But I just like to leave a little bit of fluorocarbon on there. It saves you some braid. You don't have to use as much braid, and just gives you a little backing. So I took those two lines and just kind of laid them together and tie an overhand knot. I mean, it's nothing strong. It's just something to keep it connected till it goes into the spool. So it's in the spool there. I always like to have my new spool of line spinning like that whenever I'm reeling it up. You know, you can kind of see it through there, but that's, you know, we have a video on spooling that we've done before if you want to check that out. But now I'm just reeling on some fresh braid. This is 65-pound Seagar. You know, typically I like using 50-pound, but this heavy cover this time of year, you can get into some really thick stuff. So I went with the 65-pound. I have another rod rigged up already right here, but it's got the 50-pound on it. So I figured I'd go 65-pound on this one right here. And you see, the cool thing about these spools is you're able to get a couple reels out of them, especially the heavier line. You know, 65-pound line is 0.016 inch diameter, which is essentially, it says equivalent to 25-pound mono. So that same 150-yard spool, you can fill up more reels with it. So that's another cool thing about using the heavier line, is now I could fill up probably at least 2 for sure, maybe 3 reels with that one spool of line if I needed more reels to go punching with. All right, so we got our 65-pound braid on there. It's just smackdown stealth gray braid. Great stuff, super smooth. Love using that braid right there. All right, obviously we need a peg for my weight. So I'm just gonna run him through there. Slide the little peg up on the line. That's gonna keep your weight kind of pegged up against your hook and your bait. Slide your tungsten on. I got an Epic tungsten right there. So I got a 1 ounce rigged up on this rod, and I'm gonna go with an 1.5 ounces. Actually, no, this is I got an 1.5 ounces rigged up on this one, and this is a 1 ounce I'm putting on this rod. Had my numbers mixed up. Forgot what I had rigged up there earlier. So that's just a 1 ounce weight we're rigging up on there, like that. Okay, now we're gonna get us a hook. So I'm using this hook right here. This is the Trocar TK 135. It's called their monster flipping hook. So it's a little bit heavier gauge for that super heavy cover. You know, like I said, we just got 65-pound line on here, so I want a good hook. It's not gonna flex out. The eye's welded shut, so you can't open him up. It's got a good, strong, super sharp point on there. And this is the 3/0 size, so I'm throwing a little bit smaller bait. We'll get into that here in a second, but this is just a great little 3/0 flipping hook right here, this TK135, the monster flipping hook. Excellent little hook for flipping. So I'm gonna tie a snell knot. You know, basically I take the hook in my right hand, the braid in my left hand, I run the line through the eye of the hook, just like that. And then I'm gonna create a little loop. Basically you just pinch the line and make a little loop like that. And I lay him on the top shank of the hook. And then you take your tag end here. And I always like to use this little, you know, the bait keeper on the hook as kind of my guide for this. And now I just take that braid and wrap it around the shank of that hook. I always like to go 7 times. I think that's 6 and 7. Okay, now you take that tag end, pull your loop up and run this tag end back through that loop. And that's your snell knot right there. Pull him tight. Just like that. That's your snell knot. Let's trim a little bit of that tag end off so we don't have him dangling everywhere. Come on. These are old scissors that are just dulled up. All right, so now when that weight hits, you see that hook wants to pop straight up. So that's the purpose of using the snell knot, is it straightens that hook up just like that. When that weight comes down and hits against the eye of the hook there, it just pops that hook straight up. And you know, when you set the hook, that's what you're looking to do right in that fish's mouth, is just pop that hook straight up like that. So always like tying a snell knot when I'm using anything over 1 ounce is really my guideline. So if I'm throwing 1 ounce, 1.5 ounces, 2 ounce, something, you know, big heavy weight, I like to snell knot. Anything under 1 ounce, you know, 3/4 is about the limit where I'll tie just a regular Miller knot or something like that. So next thing I like to do is you grab your pair of pliers, and I'm gonna add just a little twist into this hook. This is just something that I've messed with and I found it works. So I just take the pliers and hold the hook point or the bend of the hook, and I push against it with my thumb on the eye of the hook. And it basically just puts a little twist in that hook, and just another little layer of, you know, sticking point. When that bait is coming out of that fish's mouth, there's just a little twist in it that it can catch. And I found that, you know, I've hook and land a little more fish when I have that just little tiny twist into that hook like that. So that's the meat of the setup right there. I said I was using a small bait. You know, I'm using this little guy right here. So this is the Yamamoto Yamakra, the 3-inch version. Got a couple black and blue colors, you know, just straight black and blue, and then this one's bruised shin. It's got a little more blue in it. You know, it's really dark under those mats, so I always want to use a dark color. And typically, you know, this type of presentation is more of a reaction. So you just want something that it's going to fall past their face, and that's what we're going with here. So we're going to rig him up. You know, like I said, I got that big 3/0 monster flipping hook on there, and it's perfect for this small little bait. It's got a bunch of gap in it, so you're able to really yank them, and you got all that room for that bait to collapse down there and hook those fish, and you will land a bunch of them with that right there. So that right there is the setup. 1 ounce Epic Tungsten, 3/0 flipping hook, and the little Yamamoto Yamakra right there. That's a perfect little flipping setup. Now, we are going to do one more thing here. I just remembered one more thing I always like to do to my braided line anytime I'm flipping like this is I like to take a marker. Now this is an old one, man. He's dirty, tore up, but this is a braid marker essentially. So I'm going to take this and mark this line, at least for the first couple feet above the bait. So now that is solid black as well. You know, this braided line comes in a stealth gray color. It's very stealthy, to be honest with you, but I always like to just make it solid black that first couple feet above the bait. That way there's no doubt in my mind those fish can see your line, or can't see your line. You know, that's a perfectly blacked out line. Got a blacked out weight, a blacked out bait. Everything's black here if you're noticing a trend. So we're ready to go flipping in the morning now. I'm all set up, and I'm excited to get out in the water. You know, the Phoenix is in the shop at Weedas Marine, getting some year-end maintenance done, getting cleaned up and ready for the new owner. So we're taking out the aluminum. We're taking out the load tomorrow, and I'm excited to get off the grid a little bit, if you will, and get buried up in the grass and catch some fish in the heavy cover. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you learned something from this video. I'm curious your thoughts on your flipping setup, so drop it in the comments below if you do anything a little bit different. But as always, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys next time.